The hell am I?
Do you live around here, Sutter?
How do you know my name?
You go to the same school.
What's your story?
I don't really have any stories.
You mean everyone's got a story?
I don't know. I'd like to think that there's more to a person than just one thing.
There are certain films that don't rely on grand spectacle or high-stakes drama to leave an impression, but instead draw you in through something far more intimate and relatable, the quiet, often confusing transition between youth and adulthood. The Spectacular, 2013, is one of those understated coming-of-age stories that doesn't try to overwhelm you with complexity, yet somehow manages to feel deeply layered and emotionally resonant. At its core, it's a film about identity, about the masks people wear in their teenage years, and about the moment when those masks begin to crack, revealing something more honest underneath. The story unfolds around a high school senior who has built his entire life philosophy around avoidance. He's the kind of person who believes that thinking too much about the future is pointless, that commitments are traps, and that life is best lived moment to moment without any real sense of direction. On the surface, this outlook gives him a certain charm. He comes across as carefree, funny, and effortlessly cool, someone who can navigate social situations with ease because he simply refuses to take anything seriously. But beneath that exterior lies a deeper sense of detachment, a quiet fear of responsibility and emotional vulnerability that he doesn't fully understand himself. This kind of character is instantly recognizable because it reflects a phase many people go through at some point in their lives. The idea of rejecting expectations, of refusing to plan ahead, can feel liberating, especially during the final days of high school when the future looms large and uncertain. The film captures that feeling with a kind of honesty that doesn't judge the character, but instead allows the audience to see both the appeal and the limitations of his mindset. Everything begins to shift when he meets a girl who completely disrupts his carefully constructed worldview. She isn't the typical nice girl in the way that phrase is often used in teen dramas. Instead, she carries a quiet strength, a sense of self-awareness that contrasts sharply with his aimlessness. Where he avoids thinking about the future, she embraces it, even if it scares her. Where he hides behind humor and indifference, she approaches life with sincerity, even when it makes her vulnerable. Their connection doesn't happen in an overly dramatic or exaggerated way. It develops gradually, through conversations that feel natural and unforced, through moments that are small in scale but significant in meaning. The film understands that real relationships are rarely defined by grand gestures. Instead, they are built through subtle shifts in perspective, through the slow process of two people beginning to see each other clearly. What makes this dynamic particularly compelling is how it forces the protagonist to confront parts of himself that he has been avoiding. His usual tactics, deflection, humor, and emotional distance, don't work in the same way with her. She challenges him, not aggressively, but simply by being genuine. Her presence makes it harder for him to continue pretending that nothing matters, that the future is irrelevant, that relationships are just temporary distractions. As their relationship deepens, the film begins to explore the tension between staying the same and growing as a person. Change, especially at that stage of life, is rarely comfortable. It requires acknowledging fears, accepting uncertainty, and taking risks that don't come with guaranteed outcomes. For someone who has built their identity around avoiding exactly those things, the process can feel almost overwhelming. One of the most interesting aspects of the story is how it portrays the idea of philosophy in a teenage context. The protagonist's belief system isn't presented as entirely wrong. In fact, there's a certain logic to it. Living in the moment, not overthinking things, and rejecting societal pressure can be seen as a form of freedom. But the film carefully illustrates how that philosophy can also become a limitation when it's used as a shield against growth. The girl, on the other hand, represents a different kind of philosophy, one that embraces uncertainty rather than avoiding it. She understands that life doesn't come with clear answers, but she's willing to engage with that ambiguity instead of running from it. This contrast creates a subtle but powerful dialogue between the two characters, one that goes beyond romance and touches on broader questions about how people choose to live their lives. As the narrative progresses, the protagonist begins to experience moments of realization that are both subtle and impactful. These aren't dramatic turning points filled with sudden clarity. Instead, they feel like the kind of gradual awakening that happens in real life. A conversation here, a quiet moment there, a realization that lingers long after the moment has passed. These are the building blocks of his transformation. The film also does an effective job of capturing the atmosphere of late adolescence. There's a sense of time running out, of something ending even as something else is about to begin. The final year of high school is portrayed not just as a setting, but as a transitional space where identities are questioned and futures are imagined, often with equal parts excitement and fear. Friendships play an important role in reinforcing this atmosphere. The protagonist's social circle reflects different attitudes toward life after high school, from those who have clear plans to those who are just as uncertain as he is. These interactions help to contextualize his journey, showing that while his struggles are personal, they are also part of a broader, shared experience. At the same time, the film doesn't romanticize the process of growing up. It acknowledges that change can be messy, that people don't always make the right choices, and that self-awareness doesn't automatically lead to better decisions. There are moments of conflict, misunderstanding, and hesitation that feel authentic rather than contrived. The relationship at the center of the story is particularly effective because it avoids many of the cliches typically associated with teen romances. It isn't about instant perfection or idealized love. Instead, it's about two people who are trying to figure themselves out, who are imperfect and sometimes contradictory, but who nonetheless have a meaningful impact on each other's lives. There's also an underlying theme of authenticity that runs throughout the film. The protagonist's journey can be seen as a movement from performance to honesty, from a version of himself that is designed to be liked and accepted to one that is more genuine, even if it's less certain. This shift is subtle, but it's what gives the story its emotional weight. Visually and tonally, the film leans into a kind of understated realism. It doesn't rely on flashy cinematography or overly stylized sequences. Instead, it focuses on creating a sense of intimacy, allowing the audience to feel as though they are witnessing something personal and unfiltered. This approach complements the narrative, reinforcing the idea that the most significant moments in life are often the quietest ones. Another strength of the film lies in its dialogue. Conversations feel natural, often carrying multiple layers of meaning beneath their simple surface. Characters don't always say exactly what they mean, which adds a level of authenticity to their interactions. This subtlety allows the audience to engage more actively with the story, reading between the lines and interpreting the emotional subtext. As the story moves toward its conclusion, the changes in the protagonist become more apparent, but they are never presented as complete or final. The film resists the temptation to provide a neatly packaged resolution. Instead, it acknowledges that growth is an ongoing process, that the end of one chapter is simply the beginning of another. This open-ended approach feels particularly appropriate for a coming-of-age story. Life after high school is inherently uncertain, filled with possibilities that are both exciting and intimidating. By avoiding a definitive conclusion, the film captures that sense of ambiguity, leaving the audience with something to reflect on rather than a clear set of answers. Ultimately, what makes the spectacular 2013 stand out is its ability to find depth in simplicity. It doesn't try to be overly dramatic or excessively profound, yet it manages to explore complex themes in a way that feels accessible and genuine. It's a film that understands its characters and treats them with empathy, allowing their flaws and strengths to coexist without judgment. The emotional impact of the story comes not from grand moments, but from the accumulation of small, meaningful interactions. It's in the way a conversation lingers, in the way a character hesitates before speaking, in the way a perspective shifts almost imperceptibly. These details create a sense of realism that resonates long after the film ends. In many ways, the film serves as a reminder that growing up isn't about suddenly having everything figured out. It's about learning to ask better questions, to face uncertainty with a bit more courage, and to recognize the value of connection, even when it complicates things. The protagonist's journey reflects this idea, showing that change doesn't have to be dramatic to be significant. There's also a quiet optimism embedded within the narrative. While the film acknowledges the challenges and uncertainties of life, it also suggests that there's something inherently valuable in the process of growth itself. The willingness to change, to open up, and to engage with the world in a more honest way is portrayed as a meaningful step forward, even if the destination remains unclear. By the time the story reaches its final moments, there's a sense that something has shifted, not in a way that resolves everything, but in a way that opens the door to new possibilities. The protagonist is no longer the same person he was at the beginning, even if he hasn't fully defined who he is yet. That subtle transformation is what gives the film its lasting impact. It's the kind of story that stays with you not because of what happens, but because of how it makes you think and feel. It invites you to reflect on your own experiences, on the moments when your perspective changed, and on the people who influenced those changes. In doing so, it creates a connection that extends beyond the screen, making it more than just a film. It becomes a shared emotional experience. And that, ultimately, is what makes The Spectacular such a compelling watch. It doesn't try to be larger than life. Instead, it focuses on the small, often overlooked moments that define who we are and who we are becoming. It's a quiet, thoughtful exploration of youth, identity, and the delicate process of growing up, told with a sincerity that feels both refreshing and deeply authentic.